What's good, everybody? Today I have a crazy question for all of you. What country would win the MMA Olympics? Now, as we all know, MMA is not currently in the Olympics, so to do so, to implement this sport, we're gonna have to make a custom rule set. So let's get into it. First of all, a scoring system is implemented where each country selects one fighter to represent them at each weight class. Similar to Olympic boxing, this fighter is going to be selected based on the amount of fights they win leading up to the Olympics. So if the 2026 Olympics include MMA, for example, then we'd have 4 years leading up to them, so 2022 to 2025, we'd have those fights matter and score points for their participation. Losses detract the equivalent of one win, so one win is 1 point, one loss is negative 1 point. And this is made so we can reward, quality over quantity. Since the UFC is considered like the premier and really the only really good promotion in the sport, we only take fighters from the UFC into account. This is really for simplicity's sake. In real life, they would take fighters from everywhere, I'm sure. And then, if your points are negative, right? So if you're a fighter, and imagine you lose 2 fights and win 1 and you're at negative 1 points, you're ineligible, all right? I don't care if you're one of the GOATs. This is going to be important later on because we're going to have some fighters left off. I don't care if you're one of the GOATs. If you have negative points, you're left off, all right? Current champions are automatically selected. This should be obvious. Each weight division, I don't care how many times the champion has won. If you're the champ, I don't care how you got the belt. You're supposed to be the best in the world, so you're automatically selected. And when selecting the non-champion fighters, so we're going to talk about the bracket later on. When selecting the non-champion fighters, we take into account their points, right? Where again, one win is 1 point, one loss minus 1 point. And if they've won the title, they've won the title fight, be that interim or undisputed, that's worth 2 points, all right? So keep that into account going to this next part. The bracket. In the year leading up to the Olympics, these countries and fighters will have accumulated the most points getting to this 8-man bracket, all right? Where 3 wins means getting the gold. It's 8-man because if we did a 16-man bracket, it would just be insane, all right? These guys can't fight that much, all right? In this bracket, we also have points which will, are based on the medals. So, at the end of the bracket, whoever wins gets the gold, which is 3 points. Whoever loses in the final gets silver, and we give a double bronze medal to both of the third place winners, okay? The country with the most overall points at the end of all the weight classes wins the quote-unquote MMA Olympics. And then we're going to have further tiebreakers in place in case, anything happens, whatever. If we have a really bad tiebreaker, then we're just going to break it with the points they scored leading up to the Olympics, all right? And now we can get on to the question. Who would win the MMA Olympics? First, we need to start with the participants, and we have to make sure who we have as the current UFC champions. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with our guys right now. We have Flyweight Joshua Van, Myanmar. He has 10 fights, 9 wins, 1 loss, a total of 8 points. Again, the points don't really matter that much for champions because they're automatically selected, but still, 8 points is very elite. Bantamweight, Pyotr Yan, Russia, 7 fights, 4 wins, 3 losses, 1 point. Another case, this guy doesn't have that many points, but he's going to be selected because he is the champ. Featherweight, Alexander Volkanovski from Australia, 8 fights, 5 wins, 3 losses, he has 2 points. Lightweight, Ilia Topuria from Spain, 6 fights, 6 wins, 6 points. Again, from 2022 onward, okay? Welterweight, Islam Makhachev, 7 fights, 7 wins, 7 points. Middleweight, Hamza Chimaev, Russia, 5 fights, 5 wins, 5 points. For light heavyweight, we're not going to have Alex Pereira here because he vacated, so we're actually going to have him in the heavyweight division as a contender. A little spoiler for later down the video. And then lastly, at heavyweight, we have Tom Aspinall from the UK, 5 fights, 4 wins, 1 loss for 3 points. These guys will be very hard to beat, but there are a lot of good contenders in every division, all right? So let's get into it with every division, and let's see which contenders make the cut for the flyweight division. Starting off, representing Brazil, we have Alexandre Pantoja, 7 fights, 6 wins, 1 title win for 2 points, and 1 loss for a total of 6 points. Representing Portugal, Manel Cap, 6 fights, 5 wins, 1 loss, 4 points. Representing Japan, we have Tatsuro Taira, 9 fights, 8 wins, 1 loss, total of 7 points. Great numbers. Representing Kazakhstan, my GOAT, Asuham Abayev, 10 fights, 9 wins, and 1 loss for 8 points. Representing the US, we have Brandon Royval coming in at a very, very close, 2 points, 8 fights, 5 wins, 3 losses. He is tied with Michael Johnson, but since Brandon Royval has better wins, we include him over Michael Johnson. Representing Russia, we have Tagir Ulanbekov, 6 fights, 4 wins, 2 losses for 2 points. And representing the UK, we have Loner Kavanagh for 4 fights, 3 wins, and 1 loss for a total of 2 points, alright? In the Bantamweight division, we have, the Russians. I had to go with Petr Yan over Umar because he is the champ. Even if Umar has more points, Petr Yan is the current champion right now, so he is going to be representing Russia. Representing Georgia, we have Merab. 8 fights, 7 wins, 1 title win, 1 loss, a total of 7 points. Representing the US, we have O'Malley. 7 fights, 5 wins, 1 title win, 2 losses for a total of 4 points. China, Song Yudong. 7 fights, 4 wins, 3 losses for a total of 1 point. Representing Canada, we have Ayman Zahabi. 6 fights, 6 wins, 6 points. Afghanistan, we have Farid Basharat. 6 fights, 6 wins, and 6 points. Representing Mexico, we have David Martinez over, the other Mexicans in the division. 3 fights, 3 wins for 3 points. And finally, representing Brazil, we have Vinicius Oliveira, who has 5 fights, 4 wins, and 1 loss for a total of 3 points, alright? Next, in the Featherweight Bracket, we have representing Russia, Evloev, 5 fights, 5 wins, 5 points, undefeated. Representing Brazil, we have John Silva, 7 fights, 6 wins, and 1 loss for 5 points. Representing the UK, we have Lerone Murphy, making it here with 7 fights, 6 wins, 1 loss for 5 points. We have Steve Garcia, 8 fights, 7 wins, 1 loss, 6 points, representing the US. Next, representing Argentina, we have Kevin Vallejos, 4 fights, 4 wins, 4 points. Morocco, we have Youssef Zalal, 5 fights, 5 wins, and 5 points. Representing Uganda, finally, we have David Onama, who has 8 fights, 6 wins, and 2 losses for 4 points, alright? Now, on to one of the marquee divisions in the UFC. In the lightweight division, representing Armenia, we have Armin Sarukian, 7 fights, 6 wins, 1 loss for 5 points. Representing Brazil, we have Charlie do Bronx Oliveira, 8 fights, 5 wins, 1 title fight win, and 3 losses for 3 points. Representing the US, we have Max Holloway, 7 fights, 4 wins, 1 title win, and 3 losses for 2 points. Representing France, Benoit Saint-Denis, 11 fights, 9 wins, and 2 losses for 7 points. Representing the UK, we have Paddy Pimblett, 7 fights, 6 wins, 1 loss for 5 points. Representing New Zealand, Dan Hooker, 3 wins, 3 losses, 0 points. Alright, he's the best by default because everyone else in the division was either ass, buns, cheeks, or just negative points. And then lastly, representing Poland, Mateusz Gamrot, 8 fights, 5 wins, 3 losses for 2 points. Next, the welterweight division, what might be the best division in the sport currently. Jack Della Maddalena representing Australia, 9 fights, 8 wins, 1 title win, 1 loss for a total of 8 points. Representing Ireland, we have Ian Gary, 10 fights, 9 wins, 1 loss, 8 points. Representing Ecuador, Michael Morales, 7 fights, 7 wins, 7 points. Representing Palestine, we have Bilal Muhammad, 6 fights, 4 wins, 1 title win, and 2 losses for 3 points. Representing Brazil, Carlos Prates, 7 fights, 6 wins, 1 loss for 5 points. Coming out of the USA, Sean Brady, 5 fights, 3 wins, 2 losses for 1 point. And representing the UK, Leon Mumblemouth Edwards, 6 fights, 3 wins, 1 title win, and 3 losses for 1 point. Alright? Next, the middleweight division, man. It's so tragic. No Whitaker, no Izzy. They're just in the negatives, man. They're in the negative points. I can't put them here, alright? Representing South Africa, we have Dricus du Plessis, 8 fights, 7 wins, 1 title win, 1 loss for 7 points. Representing France, Nasruddin Imavov, 8 fights, 7 wins, and 1 loss for 6 points. Representing the US of A, Sean Strickland, 10 fights, 6 wins, 1 title win, 4 losses for 3 points. Representing the Brazil, Caio Borraio, 9 fights, 8 wins, and 1 loss for 7 points. RDR coming out of the Netherlands, 6 fights, 4 wins, 2 losses for 2 points. Representing the UK, we have Leroy Duncan for 9 fights, 7 wins, 2 losses, 5 points. Representing Georgia, we have Roman Dolidze, 10 fights, 6 wins, 4 losses for 2 points. Alright? Next, light heavyweight. Magomed Ankalaev, he beats out Azamat Murzakanov because he's fought better competition. 6 fights, 5 wins, 1 title win, 1 loss, 5 points coming out of Russia. Representing the Czech Republic, the GOAT, Yuri Prohaska, 6 fights, 4 wins, 1 title win, 2 losses for 3 points. Representing New Zealand, we have Carlos Ulberg, who has 9 fights and 9 wins, undefeated at 9 points. Representing the US, Khalil Roundtree, 7 fights, 5 wins, 2 losses, and 3 points. Representing China, we have Zhang Mingyang, who has 4 fights, 3 wins, and 1 loss for 2 points. Representing Ukraine, we have Nikita Krylov at an even record, 0 points. And finally, representing Uzbekistan, we have Bogdan Kuskov, 4 fights, 3 wins, and 1 loss for 2 points. And finally, the heavyweight division. We have, representing Brazil, Alex Pereira, 11 fights, 9 wins, 3 title wins, 2 losses for 10 points. Representing France, Cyril Gane, 5 fights, 3 wins, 2 losses for 1 point. Representing Russia, we have Alexander Volkov beating out Pavlovich for 7 fights, 5 wins, 2 losses, and 3 points. Representing the Dominican Republic, we have Waldo Cortes Acosta, 12 fights, 10 wins, 2 losses for 8 points. And representing the US, Curtis Blades, 6 fights, 4 wins, 2 losses, 2 points. Representing Poland, Marcin Tybura at 9 fights, 5 wins, 4 losses for 1 point. And finally, representing Moldova, Sergey Spivak, 8 fights, 5 wins, 3 losses for 2 points. Now that we've gone over this, let's get into the fights, alright? What happens in every division? For the flyweight division, it's Van versus Tagir Ulanbekov, and I do believe Van wins this fight. Not really that much to say, bro. Tagir's bums. He's a flyweight that got submitted. You know, there's no shame in losing to Kyoji Horiguchi, alright? The GOAT, the big gooch. But honestly, I could just see Van doing whatever he wants with him. Van has pretty good takedown defense. It's going to come into play later on. But Tagir Ulanbekov just has nothing to offer. On the feet, not too much to offer on the ground. He should move up to bantamweight, alright? Next, Kop beats Asu Almabayev. Now, you guys know, I love my Kazakhstanis, and this is a very competitive matchup. But Kop has too much momentum, and he has too much power. We've seen how that turns out. We saw, you know, Asu Almabayev, he doesn't do too well against some of these guys who actually have some power on the feet. I would say Manel Kape is the best bet for this matchup by far. This guy has a ton of momentum. I see this guy going really far in this bracket, in this division. And yeah, man, let's get to the next one. Pantoja against Loner Kavanagh. Now, this is a very interesting matchup. I'd love to see what Loner can do, but I do think Pantoja wins this fight. He's much better on the floor, and I think he would just grit his way to victory. All right, Kavanagh's too green. Give me Pantoja by sub, maybe round 2, round 3. Next, Royval versus Taira. Now, although Royval won the last fight, Taira has evolved and has a lot more momentum. I do see Taira winning this fight. I see this fight going to decision, and this time Taira actually getting the nod from the judges, alright? Rest in peace, Royval. Move up to bantamweight. There's nothing more for you down here at flyweight. You did your best, alright? Taira by decision. Now, I do believe Manel Kape beats Joshua Van. This fight would be absolute cinema, though. These would be the 2 fastest flyweights who look like Goku versus Vegeta in this bitch. And yeah, man, I think everything that Van does, I just think that Kape does better. He has more experience in the sport. He has more power. He's just as fast as Van, if not faster. He has a better ground game. You know, he's been in those matchups more. It's just not the best matchup with Van. If it was Asu versus Van, I do think Van would win that fight. But since Kape, I do believe, beats Asu, I'd have to say Kape loses. Kape beats Joshua Van, alright? And lastly, Alexander Pantoja versus Tatsuro Taira. Similar situation to Kape versus Van. I do think that everything Taira does well, Pantoja just does better. He has a better ground. He has better striking. Give me Pantoja via unanimous decision. And for the final, potential of fight of the year, Pantoja versus Kape. I do think this comes down to it. Can Kape crack the legendary Pantoja chin? And I think he can. We've seen Pantoja fight, you know, Davidson Figueiredo, who had crazy power back in the day. And I think Pantoja will just overwhelm Manel Kape with his zombie-like pressure, take over in the later rounds, and get a late submission wins. Probably after being down in the scorecards, if we're honest. But I do think Pantoja takes this fight by submission. Alright? Pantoja goes on to win gold for Brazil. Kape gets silver for Portugal. Tatsuro Taira and Joshua Van win bronze for Japan and Myanmar, respectively. Alright? Next. In the bantamweight division, the first matchup, Petr Yan versus Vinicius Oliveira. Do I have to say anything? This is Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby, alright? Petr Yan wins, bro. I'm not even going to give this the time of day. O'Malley versus Martinez. Martinez has great power. He's good at smudging folks against the fence, but O'Malley has better power, and he spent like 3+ training camps trying to defend the smudge. That's been all he's doing in training, alright? This would probably be a decision. Martinez hasn't ever gotten his chin cracked, but if someone does it, it would be O'Malley. For now, give me O'Malley beating Martinez by decision, alright? Merab versus Farid Basharat. Now, Farid is good, but his wins have been not convincing in the slightest, bro. His nickname is Ferocious, and he hasn't gotten a single finish in the UFC. Merab is just too good. Give me Merab by decision. Now, Song Yadong versus Ayman Zahabi. Very interesting matchup, but Zahabi gets rocked in all of his fights, and this time he's fighting a real power puncher. Man, so if those guys were beating you and rocking you, what do you think is going to happen, bro? Going from Jin Matsumoto to Song Yadong is going to be nasty work. Give me Song by round 3 KO, alright? Yan versus O'Malley. Maybe the most controversial pick of the video, but I do believe that Yan will win this fight. I think he won the first fight, alright? But he didn't, but I think he won that first fight, and he downloads that data. We saw the adjustments he made in the Petr Yan rematch. I'm sure he'd have some crazy adjustments for the O'Malley rematch. I love O'Malley's style, Petr Yan style. I think he'd beat O'Malley in this matchup for the silver, or for the second place medal, alright? Now, Merab beats Song Yadong. This is a very scary matchup for Merab because, you know, Song Yadong does have the touch of death. But Merab did fight against O'Malley 2 times, so I think he should be fine. Merab by smudge decision. And for the finals, I'm sorry to my Georgian casuals, guys. Given their fight styles, I just don't think Merab can adapt. I don't see him having the intellect, like the brain power, to make the adjustments that Petr Yan made over him. And even if he made some adjustments, I think during the fight, Petr Yan would adjust on the adjustments, man. Yan by late TKO to win the gold. It hurts my soul. Petr Yan has gold for Russia. Merab wins silver for Georgia. Song and O'Malley win bronze for China and the USA, respectively. Alright? On to the next division, the featherweight division. In the first fight, Volk beats Onama. Onama is very beatable, and if Volk were to lose, it's by fluke. And again, if Lopez couldn't get it done by fluke in 50 minutes, Onama not getting that shit, alright? Volk by decision. Vallejos beating Steve Garcia. Steve is alright, you know, good striker, but he is sloppy, and the last thing you want to be against Mini Topuria is sloppy. Garcia has been hurt before in his career, so give me Vallejos by KO, round 1 or 2, alright? Movsar beats Youssef Zalal. This guy, bruh, Movsar wins all of his fights by smudge decision, and Youssef is good, you know, he would make it scrambly, but he just wouldn't make it scrambly enough. It wouldn't be enough to convince the judges in any significant way, alright? John Silva beating Lerone Murphy. John Silva is super dangerous. He was getting tagged up, but, you know, Lerone was getting tagged up on the feet by Movsar. The power, the mix-up, the angles, is going to be too much for Murphy in this fight against John Silva. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like an early finish or like a decision win for Silva, like Arnold Allen style, you know? I'm leaning more towards a finish, okay? Next, Volk against Vallejos. Now, this pick that I'm about to tell you guys is only valid for like 1 or 2 more years, okay? Vallejos is for sure a future contender, you know? Maybe a future champ, but minimum a future contender. But I trust that Volk, with his experience in the 5-rounders, his experience against against Ilya, against Max, against Islam, I pray that they would be enough, alright? So give me Volk by decision over Vallejos. And lastly, Silva beating Evloev, alright? What? This is crazy. Silva, Vallejos, and Volk are the only 3 guys I can see beating Evloev. And even still, it would be very close. It might be tough to argue that Silva can keep it on the feet, but I think his style is so violent, and he was able to regain his footing against Diego Lopez in that first round when they were both dry and getting grappled, that I do trust in Silva to do a good amount of damage and win a 29-28 decision. And in the finals, this is an AI result, alright? I'm warning you guys. Silva is too much for Volkanovski. Volk in his prime, way more interesting fight. But right now, I just see Volk getting chinned like round 2. Just really tragic to think about, but that's what I see happening. And that's what it is, man. John Silva winning gold for Brazil. Alexander Volkanovski winning Australia a silver. And Movsar Evloev and Kevin Vallejos getting bronze for Russia and Argentina, alright? Next division, the lightweight division. We have the first fight. Ilya beating Gamrot. Gamrot has no finishing power. Could not hold down Dan Hooker. Ilya would do bad things to Gamrot. And this is one of those fights where I literally don't see a winning path for Gamrot. What is bro supposed to do? Genuinely. Alright? Holloway beating Saint Denis. I made a video about how this fight actually makes the most sense for both of these guys right now in the division. You know, BSD is on a crazy run. He deserves a step up. Holloway just got wrestle-fucked by Oliveira, and he should be looking in his next fight to showcase that he is actually a good wrestler, that he can actually hold his own. These 2 guys are both savages. They would put up a crazy fight of the year for us. It would be absolute cinema. And I think Max would win. Better chin, has fought, you know, more interesting guys, more experienced guys. He has maybe comparable power, more cardio, way more experience than the 5 rounders. I think Max Holloway got this, all right? On the other side of the bracket, Tsarukyan beating Paddy Pimblett. Obviously, man, like, what do you want me to say? Arman significantly better on the feet, better on the ground. If Oliveira couldn't submit Arman, what the fuck is Paddy supposed to do? Yeah, Arman, kill that boy. Kill that boy. Oliveira beating Dan Hooker. Now, this does bring a smile to my face. Hooker is about to get slimed out. You saw how Oliveira, like, how he submitted all these guys throughout his career, and you saw how Dan Hooker just got submitted by the same submission twice. Bruh, let's be honest, all right? I just love to see how Oliveira would submit him. Like, would it be a triangle? Would it be a fucking armbar? What would he do, all right? Oliveira by sub, round 1 or 2. Now, Ilya versus Max. The Holloway-Ilya rematch at 155 is super interesting because their first fight was so good at 145. And I do think, you know, Holloway, he did really well controlling the range, landing the jab, just being long, pause, no diddy. But man, Holloway's chin is a little cracked now. And Ilya's just getting better. Give me Ilya by the same outcome. Round 2 or round 3 KO, alright? And for the other finals matchup, Tsarukyan versus Oliveira, another rematch. Oliveira has improved a lot since their last fight, but so has Arman, alright? And the Oliveira improvements have been in the wrestling, which is something that's not going to help against Arman, because you're not going to ever be a better wrestler than Arman Tsarukyan. This guy's been doing it his whole life. This fight probably goes a lot like the first one, except Arman is more mindful of the submissions, doesn't get caught in the triangle, doesn't get caught in the guillotine, you know, all these things. Arman by decision. And in the finals, very interesting matchup. Ilya versus Arman. You know, what we know about for sure about this matchup is that Arman can't stay on the feet with Ilya. And if he doesn't stay on the feet with Ilya, we'd get to actually see how good Ilya's grappling is, because we've seen him against a jiu-jitsu guy, or 2 jiu-jitsu guys, Bryce Mitchell and Oliveira. But yeah, we haven't really seen him against someone that is just, you know, a wrestler at their core. Unfortunately, I do believe Arman would do the dumb mistake of staying on the feet with Ilya, given their beef, given how much they've talked. Arman would probably get it rocked a couple times in his career. He's been rocked a couple times in his career. So I would see him getting rocked in this fight really easily. I just can't get the image of Ilya KOing Arman out of my head. Like, it's just what's going to happen. The scrambles would be fire, though, if they were to scramble. So Ilya Topuria, not really a big surprise, wins the lightweight bracket, all right? Ilya Topuria wins gold for Spain. Arman Tsarukyan wins Armenia a silver. Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway win Brazil and the US a bronze medal apiece, all right? Next division, the welterweight division. As I said, the premier division in the sport, in my opinion. First fight, Islam beats Leon Edwards, man. Well, dude, what are you talking about, dude? Islam, of course, beats Leon Edwards. This fucking guy. I don't care if he's Mr. Headshot Dead Man. Islam does whatever he wants to him. I'm sure he'd struggle a little bit to get him down. You know, Leon has some good takedown defense or whatnot. But the second they're on the ground and Leon tries to get up, he's getting darsed. All right? Islam by sub. Gary beats Sean Brady. Very interesting matchup on the feet. It's the Ian Gary show. No contest. But on the grappling, Sean Brady low-key got the edge here, guys. He has better submissions, better wrestling. Given that Ian Gary was able to keep it on the feet against Bilal, I trust that he'd do the same against Brady. And yeah, man. Ian Gary wins, I guess, bro. This guy, Ian Gary, all right? Michael Morales versus Bilal Muhammad. Not really a hard matchup to predict, unfortunately. Bilal does get beaten by Morales. Seeing how scared and mismatched Brady was against Morales in there, trying to get the takedown, and like just how long fucking Michael was in there, Bilal is going to suffer the same fate. He's not as chinny as Sean Brady, so I do believe he makes it to the later rounds and actually loses by decision. But the damage that Morales is going to put on him is going to be way too much, all right? JDM versus Protest. We're going to see this fight soon. I'm very hyped. Very risky pick because Protest has a nuclear option, but I do believe JDM wins this. JDM has the way cleaner striker. I'm more confident picking the cleaner striking in the striking matchup. I'm sure we'd see JDM rocked, maybe for the first time in his career or in the UFC. But I do see JDM making out of here, maybe with a couple scary moments. And yeah, man. Islam Makhachev beats Ian Gary. Not really, you know, another fight that is too controversial of a pick. We might see this fight soon for the title. And yeah, this is just Conor McGregor versus Khabib from Temu. That's all it is. Basically a well-rounded fighter in Ian Gary versus an extremely well-rounded fighter in Islam Makhachev. And yeah, this is probably the worst matchup for Ian Gary in the whole division. So shout out to him. Gary wins. If Gary wins, it's because of I don't know, a banana peel or some shit. Islam fucking tears his ACL in there, alright? Next, JDM versus Michael Morales. This is a striking battle, and JDM, again, is the far, far cleaner striker. He has more power, Michael Morales does, but JDM is very used to dealing with these long, gangly guys. You know, Kevin Holland was 6'3", Randy Brown, I believe, is also 6'3". JDM would get this done by bloody and hard-fought decision over 3 or 5 rounds. Doesn't matter. Whatever rounds you want, JDM is winning this shit, alright? And in the finals, Islam versus JDM. It sucks that I have to predict this because no time has passed. Basically, JDM hasn't had any time to grow at all. But yeah, man, it would just go the same as the first fight. Like, what do you want me to say? Islam via smudge, alright? Islam Makhachev wins Russia a gold. JDM wins Australia a silver. Ian Gary and Michael Morales both win bronze for Ireland and Ecuador, alright? Next division. The middleweight division. Chimaev beats the Lidze, bruh. I'm not going to say nothing else about this matchup, okay? Strickland beats Leroy Duncan. Leroy is a very good prospect, but Strickland's experience, his pressure, it's just not a good recipe for a guy in Duncan who's very used to going forward in all of his fights. Maybe Duncan lands something, but the Philly shell just really reduces the impact of most of the shots that are thrown at Sean Strickland. So yeah, man. Sean Strickland via pitter-patter decision. Next, DDP beats Caio Borralho. I just don't see a world where Caio wins. I understand he's okay. I just made a tier list recently about how Caio is one of the most overrated fighters in the whole sport. This guy, he's just okay everywhere and doesn't excel he does not excel in any one specific area, at all. Unlike our glorious Lion King, DDP, the real African GOAT, he has great heart, great cardio, great power, whatever. The real African King gets this shit done by violent 5-round bloody decision, 48-47, alright? Next, Imavov beats Rainier de Ritter. Now, RDR has disappointed me so much recently. How the fuck are you losing to Brendan Allen via I can't get my ass off the stool? That's crazy. We saw how much he struggled against Whitaker with his speed, and at this point in his career, Imavov is probably faster than Whitaker, okay? Which is crazy to say, but I do think that's what it is. In my opinion, this shouldn't be a big surprise. I do think Imavov wins by decision. Maybe by KO. Chimaev versus Strickland. Now, this is actually a fight that's already scheduled. We're due for this soon, and I'm very hype. I'm sure you guys all have the same sentiment that I have, with Strickland is actually going to do better than we expect, but it's not going to be enough. Alright? Not too big of a surprise. We'll probably see Chimaev lose a couple rounds for the first time in the sport. He lost one against Usman and maybe one against Burns. But I think Strickland will actually make this like a very close 48-47 and dismantle this, aura of invincibility that Hamza has. However, I just don't think it's going to be enough to win. This loss is not going to do anything bad for Strickland's career, though. It's going to be like, oh, he's the guy that took, Hamza to a crazy decision. All right? DDP versus Imavov. Heart, brother. Heart. Heart over everything else. Except that everything else, unless that is, getting put into a crucifix, okay? DDP has the experience, the cardio, the fucking heart, the power, the chin, the goofiness. He can do it. He overwhelms Imavov to a decision. Maybe I'm coping. Maybe this is all my headcanon. But fuck it, bro. It's my channel, alright? Chimaev versus DDP. Same thing with the JDM shit. Not enough time has passed. Chimaev by smudge, bro. Tragic. I don't think DDP can learn to get out the crucifix in that amount of time, alright? Chimaev wins gold for Russia. DDP wins silver for South Africa. Both Strickland and Imavov getting a bronze medal for USA and France, alright? Next division. The light heavyweight division. Ankalaev beats Zhang Ming Yang in the first round. Bro, Zhang, how the fuck do you lose to Johnny Walker, bro? They put bro in China in front of a huge crowd against the chinniest of 205ers just to put on a show for the Chinese crowd, and he gets fucking leg kick TKO'd. What? He gets his shit shattered in less than a round? What are we talking about, alright? Based on that loss, Ankalaev beats you very confidently. Ank was taking that Polish power, until he wasn't. But he can take those leg kicks way better than Zhang Mingyang can. So yeah, round 4, round 5 TKO for Ankalaev. Khalil Rountree beats Johnny Walker. Very interesting fight. They fought back in the day. Khalil Rountree getting knocked out by Johnny Walker with that elbow in the clinch. That's what actually made him go to Thailand and lock in with the Muay Thai. And now I think he's actually better. I don't think it's a big surprise. You know, he fought for the title and all that. I think the speed is too much for Walker. The power is too much for Walker. Round 1 KO victory for Khalil, okay? Yuri beats Guskov. Guskov is a good prospect. Not good enough, brother. Not nearly good enough. Genuinely would get finished in the first round, probably with no effort, like negligible effort. And Guskov, so chopped, he would probably just fold under the legendary aura of Yuri. Now, is this Glaze? Yes. I don't give a fuck. Yuri by KO. Next, Olberg beats Jamal Hill. Who doesn't at this point, bruh? Jamal has looked like shit in every single fight back from his injury. Slept by Pereira. Slept by Yuri. Dominated by Khalil. Let's just get ready to add Olberg to that list, bruh. Olberg, welcome to the club, buddy. Ankalaev versus Khalil Roundtree. Not much to say, man. I do think Khalil would probably pose some issues for Ankalaev, like early on. Maybe the first round, second round, a little too fast. But Ankalaev has some good power, good wrestling. I don't think Khalil is ready for any type of wrestling at all. I've never seen this guy do anything on the ground, alright? So give me Ankalaev by, 5-round decision, alright? Next, Yuri beats Olberg. The GOAT! The GOAT! Yuri gets it done no matter what. That's my GOAT right there. What if instead of talking about the fight, what if instead of talking about Yuri versus Olberg, I just glaze Yuri, guys? What about it, alright? For real, Yuri is a way more dangerous striker, grappler, has better cardio, and did not go to a split decision with 43-year-old Unk Jan Blachowicz, alright? Olberg stands no chance. I'm glad we get to see this fight soon. I'm glad we're gonna get to see Yuri beat the brakes off him, alright? Yuri versus Ankalaev. We're going up, up, up. It's our moment. Yes, Yuri does beat Ankalaev. No, I have no idea how that would look like. And that's the beauty of Yuri Prochazka, man. That's the beauty of this man. He wins. He just does. Probably getting out-wrestled the whole fight and then pulls a KO out of nowhere. Shout out Yuri winning it all for the Czech Republic, alright? Yuri wins a gold for the Czech Republic. Ankalaev wins a silver medal for Russia. Khalil and Olberg win the US and New Zealand bronze medals, okay? And the last division, the heavyweight division. Aspinall beats Tybura. Aspinall already beat Tybura, so this division is that shallow. I had to make this fight. Sorry, guys, okay? Aspinall by whatever he wants. Waldo Cortez Acosta beats Volkov. We saw that Volkov isn't really like that competent on the ground. And we've seen that, he's been submitted by Aspinall back in the day, so he's gonna want to keep the fight on the feet. He's not gonna try to grapple against Waldo. And the best thing that can happen for Waldo is this fight being striking, because this guy, all he does is box. So the most likely option is Waldo boxing up, big Volkov here for a decision. Okay, Alex Pereira beats Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak, bro, he smudges Pereira. Trust, guys, trust. If Jan Blachowicz couldn't smudge my GOAT, Spivak definitely is not doing shit, bro. Give me Pereira by round 1 knockout, where Spivak jiggles on his way down after losing consciousness, okay? Next. I know, man. Cyril Gane beats Curtis Blaydes. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Outside of Aspinall and Pereira, Gane is by far the best heavyweight in the division. I believe Blaydes is good for the heavyweight division. He's good for the division, but he's a clear category below Gane. The tiers are like Aspinall, Pereira, Gane, Blaydes, and the rest, okay? Gone by decision, but a close decision. Next, Alex Pereira beats Cyril Gane. We're going to see his matchup in the White House. I'm hyped. Hyped to see my boy KO Cyril Gane. It's going to be glorious when Gane's 250 pounds of pure muscle just like tumble down to the canvas and cause an earthquake. I can just very easily see Alex just being too quick, too evasive, outstriking him, being more explosive, having more power, being handsomer, being richer, Yeah, man. Tom Aspinall versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. What do you want me to say, bro? Tom Aspinall wins. Not really a big debate. Probably takes down Waldo. Probably smudges him. Probably submits him. Ground and pound finish. Whatever you want. And for the final, Tom Aspinall beating Alex Pereira. I wish I could dig right Alex into oblivion, but I can't, man. Tom would not be stupid enough to stand with Alex. He said himself that he'd blast a double in the first round. And I believe him, bro. I do believe him. If Alex lands some crazy knee, then anything can happen. But unfortunately, give me Aspinall by round 1 or 2 submission. Tom Aspinall wins gold for the UK. Alex Pereira wins Brazil a silver. Waldo Cortez Acosta and Cyril Gane win the DR and France bronze medals, okay? And now for the results. What we've all been waiting for. In the third place, we have a tie between the US and Australia. As we know, Volkan JDM coming just short of the gold medal, winning 2 silvers for Australia, and in the US having 4 bronze winners: Strickland, O'Malley, Roundtree, and Holloway. In second place, we have Brazil with a grand total of 4 medals. 2 gold medals coming from John Silva and Alexandre Pantoja in the lighter weight classes. A silver medal coming from Poatan Pereira at heavyweight, and the bronze medal coming from Charlie DuBronx in the lightweight division, alright? And in first place, the highest medaling country in the MMA Olympics, Russia, with a stunning 12 points. Champions taking home gold in 3 divisions: Pyotr at 135, Islam at 175, Hamza at 185, Ankalaev taking a silver medal in the 205 division, and finally, Evloev taking a bronze in the flyweight division. The winner is Russia. Does it surprise any of you guys? What do you guys think, alright? Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think about the hypothetical MMA Olympics? Is this how you guys would see it going? Would you modify the rule set anyway? Would you fuck with the points? Maybe would you make a fight for an actual 3rd place instead of giving out 2 medals? Should fighters outside the UFC be able to compete? Thank you again for watching. I'm gonna go get my wisdom teeth pulled, alright? Ciao!